SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
If you're feeling anxious about your investments with all the economic volatility and chaos in Washington, tune in to SuperTalk Jackson on Wednesdays from 9 to 10 a.m. and Sundays from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. for Element Wealth Radio with Jeremy Nelson. Learn more at myelementwealth.com.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive.
Hey there. How are y'all doing?
But now I'm a man.
Richard is, where is he, Lance? On vacation today? I'm Scott Sands, your substitute teacher today. Is he on another vacation?
It looked like an airplane, and there was a much better half. He had a picture with a much better half.
With sent us both a picture this morning. I believe he will be back tomorrow. I know I'm not on tomorrow, and you're all happy about that, but it's always a pleasure to be invited to sit in for Richard and to speak with you, Lance, and everybody else on Super Talk Mississippi. Hope you had a great weekend.
I had a great weekend. It was busy until yesterday, and then I got to kind of chill out a little bit and watch a lot of baseball, catch up on news, which there's no small amount of that ever, it seems. So
there's no shortage of at least national and international news today.
Yeah, Richard had texted. He goes, "Well, boys, I hate that y'all have nothing to talk about today." And I was like, "What? Things happened?" What happened?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's anything much new. Although one big story that we'll start with today. A pretty good weekend for me as well.
Yeah, what'd you get into?
Camp got invited up to a friend's camp on Saturday, about an hour outside of town, and watched a really cheesy '80s cover band at this resort where all the people camp like all season long, all summer. All the campers are there. Mm-hmm. And they'll set up and just stay on the weekend all summer. Some people may live there during the summer, I don't know. But it's a nice little resort. They've got some ponds and pools and fishing and stuff. And we just watched an 80s band and went to an authentic Australian food truck where the guy told me it's the only authentic Australian food truck in America.
Really? And what's the difference in an Australian food truck?
Well, it was serving what he purported to be Australian food. There was kangaroo jerky. He had Vegemite sandwiches, which I did not try.
Vegemite, that goes back. Goodness.
I got a lamb pie, which was okay, I guess, for food truck food. But I'm not sure what made it authentic, other than having Vegemite as a sandwich. Yeah. I'm not sure what else, and kangaroo jerky. I'm not sure what else made it an authentic Australian food truck, and why. And if it was a market opportunity, why are there not more Australian food trucks? I'm not sure I understood his business plan.
I'm not sure either, but the Vegemite does not look delicious. I mean, from my researching it over the years, when anybody, I can't remember who threw that at us a couple years ago, and Paul was like, "Yeah, you don't remember Vegemite?" I'm like, "No, I mean, 1922? No, I don't remember Vegemite." But I did a little digging, and it just doesn't look delicious, But it says a great spread for sandwiches, toast, crumpets, crackers, biscuits. But it's a pastry spread, basically, So vegetable and spice.
Yeah, I wanted to try it just because I was curious, but I also didn't want to pay $10 for a Vegemite and cheese sandwich.
Well, how did it go? Was it okay?
Yeah, it was a good time. And then
as far as the Vegemite sandwich, though.
Other than the weirdly Australian-inspired food truck, it was a good weekend. And then,
how was the weather for you up there?
Nice and humid. We have these things. I don't really point this out, but it's not a secret. I'm doing the show from my home studio in Ohio, and if you want to know what Ohio is like every year, right about this time, this week, off of Lake Erie, we get this infestation of what they call mayflies, which...
Oh, the reservoir gets that, yeah.
Yeah, they come in such huge swarms that they show up like a severe thunderstorm on radar, and they get everywhere around Lake Erie at this time of year. They're only around for about 2 weeks, but they're unescapable. Like, people get into automobile accidents because the ground is so covered with dead mayflies. They live like a day or two. And
they just breed. That's it, right? I mean,
that's all they do is breed, and then they disappear until the following May. And they die, and they coat the streets. So when you go to break, you literally slide across the mayfly carcasses like it's ice. And people get into car accidents, and they're a mess on businesses, and they smell, and they're just disgusting insects.
Yeah, we get an infestation at the reservoir. Most people who have homes on the reservoir will get a nice run on the mayflies once a year, and they are a mess. Nothing as bad as what you're describing. That sounds end times like,
It's horrible. It is. It's like something out of the book of Exodus. I'll have to send you some pictures of the mayfly infestations. It's disgusting. But they come and go, and people learn to live with it. And if you choose to live around the Lake Erie area, you know that they're coming. You know that they'll be gone, and you put up with a couple of weeks, and then you move on with your life.
Well, it's kind of like the rain around here, right? 40% chance of showers today if you're in the Delta. That's kind of what it's been for, 3 or 4 days now. Showers and thunderstorms tonight as well, potentially after 3. It'd be a good day to just kind of pile up and watch some college baseball or whatever your bag is, because it looks like we may be a little damp around the state, but it gets a little easier. Corinth area, you're looking at about a 20% chance of showers and around a 70 low today, so not bad. Won't be a whole lot of wind for you. Showers and thunderstorms likely, though, again, after 4 p.m., so from one end of the state to the other, kind of the same type of forecast there. Chance of precipitation as the day goes on today up in northeast Mississippi is 70%. So you might not get a ton of rain, but it does look like you're going to get some. And then Greenwood, 40% chance of showers and, low around 72 degrees. Again, showers and thunderstorms. And Biloxi, again, you just got a little rain to look forward to today. Yeah. So just kind of get ready for it as the day goes on. So if you got plans outside, get them done early and get ready for a little rain tonight potentially.
Otherwise a nice Mississippi Monday.
What we've been dealing with for, as you were saying, you just kind of have to deal with it. Well, the rain in the last few weeks, I think we've just had to deal with it a bit. Everything's soggy, and then it gets hot and humid and crunchy, and then it'll get wet again. But the bugs love it, I can tell you that.
So a couple of big stories that we're covering this morning on Super Talk Mississippi. Obviously, the conflict between Iran and Israel continues. We'll get into that next hour with Gabriel Noronha. He is the president of Polaris National Security and former special advisor to the Iran Action Group at the State Department, so he's got a special insight. Also, Congressman Trent Kelly will join us in the 8 o'clock hour today, plus Commissioner Andy Gipson here on Super Talk Mississippi. The other big story overnight, breaking, this happened around 11 o'clock last night. The suspect, Vance Bolter, was captured in Sibley County, Minnesota. This is the largest manhunt in Minnesota history after shooting 2 Minnesota state lawmakers and their spouses. Bolter allegedly killed Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark at their home in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, and shot State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette in Champlin, Minnesota. Bolter verbally identified himself to authorities and was arrested Sunday night, described as the largest manhunt in the state's history, involving over 20 SWAT teams and a helicopter. He faces 4 felony counts of second-degree murder for the Hortmans' deaths and attempted second-degree murder for the Hoffmans. Each of those charges would carry a 40-year term in prison, although the charges could certainly escalate as the investigation continues. Authorities found 3 AK-47s, a 9mm handgun, a list of public officials' names and addresses, some of them federal officials potentially, and other states may be involved, which could bring federal charges into play. They also captured Bolter with a ballistic vest, a mask, and a police-style badge. The attack was described as politically motivated assassinations, with Bolter wearing a police-like uniform and mask, exploiting public's trust in law enforcement. At one point on Saturday, I heard them say, if the police come to your door, don't open the door unless there is a second officer there. They were sending all of their police officers out in pairs just to make sure that somebody didn't open the door thinking they were opening the door to law enforcement. Surveillance footage showed Bolter using a Ford SUV with police-style lights, announcing himself as an officer before the shootings. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota praised the Hoffman family's actions, noting that Senator Hoffman's recovery after multiple surgeries. And authorities so far have confirmed Bolter acted alone, although the investigation will continue. I don't know if you saw, Lance, the interview with his roommate, which is just a weird scenario. The guy, is in his 50s as well, had a wife and family, and left a job, I believe, managing or owning a Papa John's franchise to move in with this guy. There will be more that comes out to this story, but there are a lot of conspiracy theories floating around online, and I would urge people just to take some of those conspiracy theories you may see on social media with a grain of thought and grain of salt until we learn more about this story. They did find in Bolter's vehicle No Kings signs. Of course, the No Kings protests happened on Saturday across the country, and the bail for Bolter was set at $5 million. So there will be more on this. A new press conference, I'm sure, will be announced shortly with more information from the FBI investigation. Just a massive manhunt, and local law enforcement, federal law enforcement did a terrific job identifying this guy quickly and then tracking him down in the woods using a helicopter, where apparently police were able to get him to surrender without any incident at that time. So we'll continue to track that story throughout the morning as well here on Super Talk Mississippi. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. C-Spire text line is open as well, 601-879-4395.
I done pawned my pistol, mom, and my best clothes and shoes. Lordy, Lord, Lordy, Lordy, Lord, Lordy, Lord, Lordy, Lordy, Lord.
From the Venable Glass Track.
From Sumner to Summit to Summerall, Richard has something for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Sister tell your brother, brother tell your auntie, now auntie tell your uncle, uncle tell my cousin, now cousin tell my friend, going up the country, mama don't you want to go?
We'll get into some sports headlines in just a second. I'm sure Lance can update us on the College World Series, but I got to tell you, I'm kind of surprised that Richard chose to take today off, being the Broadway fan that he is, which is something I learned last week when I was filling in for Richard. Today, 1978, the greatest Broadway musical of all time, and really the only musical I know anything at all about, was released, Lance. Grease.
Grease, okay. I thought you were going to go like Phantom of the Opera or something.
Well, and this, I don't know what came first, Broadway or the movie, but this was the movie that came out in 1978 with John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John.
I remember that one.
I think this may have been like the first or second movie I ever saw. It was either Grease or Star Wars, which is a weird dichotomy, I know. But I remember going to see Grease with my mom and dad.
I remember Star Wars first, yeah. I remember seeing it first.
Both about Star Wars may have been the first movie I went to on my own. But,
okay.
But Grease, I definitely saw, and I'm not sure. I guess it was an age appropriate. It's kind of like High School Musical in the 70s. So it was probably age appropriate for
I think everything back then was age appropriate. You know, you stood up in the front seat of the car when you rode, you know, and parents were burning them down in there with windows up, and yeah, you could fly on an airplane, and you know, people were smoking cigars.
On the plane. Those are the good old days.
Back in the old days, man.
Bring back some of that.
You had the seat belt, and it was just around the waist. You know, that was every steering wheel was as big as the door.
Everybody sitting backwards in the station wagon.
Everybody having a party in the back seat, waving at everybody.
In the back of a pickup truck, which is still happens around Mississippi, I'm sure, but it's frowned upon today. It used to be the norm back when I was a kid. 122 years ago, 1903, the biggest days of U.S. history in business, Ford Motor Company was incorporated.
That's a big deal there, yeah. Ford Motor Company. I mean, Richard's sitting there going, "Thank you, Ford. Thank you."
1867, 58 years ago, the first ever major rock festival, the Monterey International Pop Festival, opened in California. It really launched the careers of Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, organized by the Mamas and Papas founder John Phillips. Tickets for the Monterey Pop Fest, $3.50, and about 50,000 people showed up. I don't know if you saw any of the video this weekend from Bonnaroo, which is an annual music festival. They canceled day 2 of Bonnaroo outside Nashville because the rain was so bad. There were rivers running through the campsite at Bonnaroo this weekend, so they probably avoided like a major Woodstock-style disaster by telling people just to go home and canceling the second day.
Yeah, they didn't pull a Billy McFarland, in other words.
No, it wasn't a fire fest. People saw day one. Day two just seemed to get a little rain, as a lot of stuff did yesterday. 1972, 53 years ago today, David Bowie released his fifth album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. What a classic album that was.
What a good one, yeah. I love me a little Ziggy Stardust. Great song. David Bowie's a crazy man, too. Goodness gracious.
10 years ago in 2015, Donald Trump officially announced that he was actually serious about running for president. So that was a historic day for the country. Some birthdays today. Phil Mickelson is 55.
The lefty.
I don't think he made the cut at the U.S. Open over the weekend. I think he missed the cut, as a lot of people should have. We'll talk about the U.S. Open in a second when we get into sports, but that was a mess all weekend.
Well, Phil Mickelson's actually a righty, but his dad made him play golf lefty, so he was actually the first left-handed golfer to win the U.S. Amateur.
Did not know that. Yeah. MC Ren from NWA, 56 today. Lori Metcalf, 70. She was Jackie on Roseanne. Gino Vanelli, 73. I would like to request at one point today, Lance, the classic song from the 1970s, I Just Want to Stop.
I Just Want to Stop. I don't know that one, but I'll write it down. Know that one? Yeah. I'll write it. Gino Vanelli. I don't want to stop. Okay.
Roberto Duran, 74 today. Al Cowlings, AC, 78. OJ's driver, of course. Joan Van Ark is 82. Eddie Levert from the OJs is 83.
No, you passed up what Joan Van Ark was best known for. Wasn't it Dallas?
Val Ewing.
What was it?
Dallas and Knots Landing.
Yeah, Knots Landing, and those are the good old days back then, man. Hey, don't leave out Tupac today.
Tupac was born in 1971, and you're a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
1959, The Ultimate Warrior was born.
Yes, yeah, that's a good one there. I'm also a fan of insurance for your money and your deposits. And on this day in 1933, the FDIC was born. So FDIC's birthday is today. So make a deposit. Feel good about it.
and know that it's insured.
It's insured, yeah.
I'm glad to know that my $233 in savings is safe today.
Yeah, it is payday for a lot of people today. So that, it kind of comes in right at the middle of the month if you're on that every 2-week pay period. So you should feel good about yourself today. FDIC's got your back.
Leaves as fast as it comes in, unfortunately.
You won't need insurance as fast as we're spending it, huh? Yeah, I agree, brother.
There's really no point. What else did I miss anything?
Yeah, how many investors did Ford start with?
Probably, 8, I'm going to say
20 or 11.
Oh, given multiple choice, I'm going to say 11.
11, that's the right answer. Lucky number 11. Got a little symmetry there. You wonder when you think back though, with something as forward thinking as the horseless carriage, and 11 investors. You had to have what? So total 12 people had to believe in this idea. Henry Ford and 11 others. And that is the world we live in a lot. I always like to look back at what started something so grand. And it was just a handful of people with a great idea and a little money, some credit, things like that, but pulled it off. And look at what Ford is today. Goodness gracious.
Lance, that's all you, I, and Richard need is a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a bunch of them. I just need investors. I need those 11 investors, man. Yeah.
You need the 10 other people to believe in you with money. I mean, I'll believe in you, Lance. I just don't have any money to put into the project.
Yeah, you and me both, man. I'll work it off.
So let's get into some sports headlines. I know you watched a lot of baseball over the weekend. I am most now interested after learning about this on Friday from you, the Jell-O shot tally board. Which LSU seemed to be, I sent you an update that I saw yesterday afternoon. LSU was running away with it again this year at like a 3-to-1 ratio. The LSU fans had bought like 12,000 Jell-O shots at one point.
They started it off with a bang. I mean, everybody was right out of the gate were, not necessarily even close. So, they're going to win it hands down. The longer they're there, it's not even going to be a competition. I think, what was it, up to 12,000 was the leaderboard as of this morning. LSU was at 12,737. Murray State brought their A game, though. They're up to 6,117 as of last counting. Arkansas, they haven't really bought in yet. 5,360 shots. Coastal, I think the longer they're there, they may start celebrating a little more, but they're way back. They're fourth at 3,616. Then you get out here to the the ones that aren't just really serious about this Jello stuff. Arizona 1,400 roughly, Louisville 1,200, Oregon State around 1,200, and UCLA the smart guys 860. I guess they bring their own shots. Who knows.
That is weak. I need to check Polymarket and Kalshi to see if you can bet on that.
There's no way you can't. I mean, Polymarket, as you've taught me, allows you to bet on dang near anything, right? I mean,
just about anything. It's got to be on one of the sites. So, what was the action over the weekend at the College World Series?
Well, I mean, it was a fun weekend. A lot of stuff was going on, and you got games today, and we'll get a little bit more on the flip side of the break. But as we started out, I told you my guts were that it would be an Arkansas and Oregon State final. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case. Arkansas dropped one to LSU, which was a good ball game. LSU and Anderson were just on. And if you look at Jared Jones, he had 5 strikeouts in that game, arguably their best power hitter. He was 0 for 5 of 5 Ks, and you still win 4-1. And that's a testament to Anderson, who threw 7 innings, and your 2 relievers that came in, Evans closed it out. Shores was the first guy to pin. And they were pretty much lights out, Scott. I mean, Arkansas just couldn't handle them. When you're on as a pitcher in a big park, you have a lot of confidence. I kept telling you guys, when you watch the bigger park, it's just, as a pitcher, you just have more fun. The game's more fun. You get to go relax a little bit and do what you really do best, and that's hopefully fill up the zone. LSU did that. Arkansas, on the other hand, their ace came out of the gate, just really wasn't on, Zach Root. They pulled him in the second, so I know Dave Van Horn's thinking, hey, man, we're going to need this guy, later in this tournament. So, we'll see how that pans out. Dave Van Horn's a good coach. He knows how to manage a pitching staff. But at the end of the day, LSU took it to him. And that's kind of the inside track there. That's the team that's got the inside track. And that bracket's tough. UCLA beat Murray State in a tight one. And so that'll be a Murray State Arkansas game here at 1 today in that bracket. And then you'll have the UCLA LSU at 6 o'clock. So 2 very good games to watch today.
Single elimination at this point?
Double. Well, you're double until the final, so you got to lose 2 to get put out. So Arkansas and Murray will play the elimination game. Arizona was put out yesterday. They were the first team in that first bracket to go. So
more of the College World Series action in just a second. Tonight, NBA playoffs, Game 5 tonight. Pacers Thunder, they're tied at 2. This is Mornings with Richard Cross from Scott Sands.
From the Seabrook Morning, partner. The sun is up, the coffee is on, and you're starting your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross, here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, I ain't superstitious, but a black cat is crossing my trail. Well, I ain't superstitious, black cat, I'm crossing my trail.
It's Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. C-Spire text line open as well. 601-879-4395. Lance, anything else from the College World Series worth mentioning? I watched no baseball this weekend since the Mississippi teams have been out, since my Alabama Crimson Tide didn't even make it.
Right.
Haven't really watched any of the baseball games. I probably will as we get closer to the finals, but I'm just not that invested in it, to be honest.
Yeah, well, Coastal Carolina kind of put it on Oregon State. Coastal, last night, their pitcher Morrison was just lights out. Oregon State never really was able to get on him. Louisville, they put it on Arizona pretty easily. Well, so both those games were decided by the better team, it looked. I really felt Oregon State was going to be tough, but, man, that Coastal team just doesn't like losing. I think they've won 26 in a row now. Hadn't lost since like April or something. So been a while. That team is.
You got to really get behind the stories of Murray State and Coastal Carolina as well. If I had to cheer for anybody at this point, I mean, obviously, as an SEC guy, I want to see LSU do well, and they always do. But the stories of Murray State and Coastal Carolina are kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, well, Arizona, they were eliminated, so they're out. See ya. And we'll move on today with similar setting where you have Arkansas and Murray State playing an elimination game at 1:00. You have to give Arkansas the benefit there. I mean, they've been here before. They know how to play against, with the back against the wall, but you can never count out Murray State, man. That team just never gives up. And they had a shot to take out UCLA, just couldn't do it. Had too many opportunities late in that game. So, but that's the story of baseball. You got to take care of executing. Sometimes it's not the best team; it's the team that executes the best, and not the most talented. So, you never know today. And then UCLA and LSU play tonight. So, I know you got a little NBA action, but just to say we are about 70 games into Major League Baseball, getting close to the halfway point. New York Yankees are leading in the East by about 3.5 games to Detroit Tigers. They're having a great season right now, up 9 games in the Central of the AL. Houston Astros, they're 4.5 games up in the West. And then the National League, New York Mets having a solid season so far, 2.5 above the Phillies. Chicago Cubs, another good season, 5.5 above the Brew Crew. And then the Dodgers, 43 wins, 2 games above the Giants, and 3 above the Padres. So that kind of gets us caught up with Major League Baseball. As we don't cover it too often real early in the season, but as we get to that Major League All-Star break, things start picking up. And then again, a Mississippian, Connor Griffin, hit his first home run in Single A yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Beautiful bomb. That kid is fast-tracking quick. He may be up there before you know it, but he's a first-year player in the minor leagues, had a heck of a career in high school, Jackson Prep, and first-round draft pick, So
who does he play for? Which team?
Pirates. He's with the Pirates. So, yes, he is an absolute hoss. And this kid is showing out. So wanted to give him a shout-out because anytime you get that first home run in Single A, that's always good. And a young kid, too. I don't know if he's 17 or 18, but he is an absolute ball player. The kid can fly, too. If you ever see him run around in the outfield, you're like, what in the world is that? I mean, he's like an eagle flying around out there, dude. So, yeah, congratulations to him. And then, yes, some NBA information. We hadn't seen a game since Friday, so they'll be ready to go today, huh?
I haven't seen a game all year, so it makes sense.
Right.
Actually, I did think I did watch some of the Pacers in the playoffs, but not much. I don't like. I like college ball, but the NBA just bores me.
It's just shooting.
It is
so many points, and it's. I guess if that's what you like, it's kind of like being a pitcher. Watching baseball, college baseball in those little fields, and it's like each team gets 7 bombs, the other one gets 8, and you're like, my neck's hurting even thinking about that. So it's all offense, But.
I did watch some of the U.S. Open. I don't know if you saw any golf over the weekend. Oakmont Country Club outside Pittsburgh has got to be the toughest course anywhere. It's a course I wouldn't even dream of playing. You've heard me talk about how bad my golf game is. But the rough is 9 inches tall. There's sand traps everywhere. And it rained. As if the course wasn't tough enough, let's throw 13 inches of water on top of it. And it was just a mess, especially yesterday. J.J. Spawn won the tournament. He was the only player below par. And I think that was just one stroke above par. At one point, there was nobody below par during the tournament.
Yeah, it was ugly when I looked at the opening round. We covered, they had just teed off the first 8 or 10, and everybody was over par already other than one guy. So it didn't look like it was going to be a lot of fun to be just keeping your own score during that tournament. But when you play those tough courses, man, let me tell you, there's a couple of times I've watched where they'll, and I playing golf and not being the greatest, but around the green is what's always the toughest in those great courses. They have those turtleback greens and the ball just doesn't want to stay. You chip it up there and it rolls off the other side, or you got a 10-foot putt and you run it 20 feet by it. Those courses would drive me crazy if I was a pro.
Well, it's so hard to judge when the course is wet, too. You don't know how the ball is going to roll. It lands at a pole. Sam Burns, I think, got kind of hosed on one of his deals. It landed in the fairway. The ball was actually in the fairway, but there was so much standing water that he called called an official over to ask for relief, and that official said no. He took a few more practice swings and just kept splashing things around, called a second official over, somebody higher up, and they said, no, you got to play it where it lies. And he shanked the ball off into the deep rough before the green. Probably was a 3 or 4 stroke turnaround for Sam Burns, who could have done better had he been given relief, although I don't know where he would have put the ball, because there was literally water everywhere on that course after that shower that came down yesterday. I fell asleep watching golf, as most people do my age, and woke up. It was during the rain delay, and all of a sudden I'm watching Tiger Woods win the U.S. Open. I was very confused for a brief period of time.
It was just a lot going on there.
They decided to show what was that, the 05 or the 08 U.S. Open. I don't remember Tiger Woods playing right this year. Where did he come from out of the blue? But good for him.
Golf, it's so hard for me to watch it. It's I love playing it. It's just so difficult to watch. I'll end up passing out in a nap of like a bear hibernating. It's the best feeling in the world when you wake up and they're finishing up and you sat there hoping that you were going to catch a little bit, and then you killed like 5 hours accidentally.
Right.
Whoa, what happened here? Oh, okay, this is still going on? Okay.
But it is the best thing to have on if you're looking for an afternoon, a Saturday or Sunday afternoon nap. Because you'll fall asleep. You're not going to miss that much. As long as you catch the ending of the tournament, you're fine.
It's like one of those older dudes that, at Thanksgiving or Christmas, and you get a little food in your belly, and something's on TV, and then you look around and everybody's passed out. Just
it's fine.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. That's a Sunday afternoon with golf on.
J.J. Spawn won the tournament, as I said, and I loved his post-tournament interview where he said his day started at 3 o'clock in the morning with a run to CVS because one of his daughters, was sick. Well, that's like the ultimate Father's Day. Wake up, run to the pharmacy to get medicine for your kid. Wake up a couple of hours later for your tea time and win the U.S. Open. That's got to be a great experience.
Well, I mean, how could you know when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning that you're going to win the tournament, and you get to look back on this thing going, yeah, man, I had to run to CVS, and the story. That's always, to me, some of the fun part of, all of the entertainment and especially the high-level sports, is these guys have kids and these girls, they have families. I mean, they're moving out of life to go do this for 3 or 4 days, and it takes an awful lot. So you got to give a lot of street cred. Somebody that gets up at 3 in the morning, runs to CVS, takes care of the daughter, then gets out there and wins a tournament in the middle of a pouring down rainstorm. Happy Father's Day, bud.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. Right. That's awesome.
We will cover some of the breaking news stories, including the weekend No Kings rallies that took place across the country, as well as the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran. A few stories on that, and we'll talk to Gabriel Noronha, who is on the special Iran task force group for the State Department, now president of Polaris National Security, right after the top of the hour. I'm looking at the stock market right now, Lance, and with all of the headlines pointing to an escalation and a longer war between the two countries, the stock market is saying the exact opposite. Equity markets turned green overnight, above the 6,000 mark on the S&P. Oil prices are down from their high after the war broke out. I would think that if the market were truly concerned about any sort of long-term conflict here, oil prices would be already above $100 a barrel. In fact, they're 10% below their high recorded last week. So for now, it appears that the market believes that a peace deal could be on the horizon. At one point early this morning, the S&P almost broke 6,100. China is now joining the U.S. in calling for an immediate measure to de-escalate tensions. We'll see what happens as President Trump embarks to Calgary for the G7 this week. He's meeting there today. Oil this morning, by the way, at $71 a barrel. Which is down. Gold prices were down as well. So that's all an indication that the market is baking in an earlier piece than you would expect. There's stories on social media this morning of more than 20 U.S. refueling planes heading east. There is a drill taking place off the coast of Finland today. I think it's called Trident 15 or Trident 25. But some speculation that this is more tankers, more refueling planes than would be normally deployed for an exercise. Could be part of a U.S. planned logistics operation to aid Israel as they maintain air superiority over Iran, and some other rumors flying that we'll talk to Gabriel about right after the top of the hour. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
Where you're from, Happyville, Batesville, DeIberville, or any other ville in the SIP. You're starting your day off right. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
We're waking up this Monday morning, Lance, with no new millionaires from Lotto America or the Powerball. The jackpots continue to grow. Jackpot tonight in Lotto America, $2.15 million with a cash value just under $1 million. Saturday night's numbers were 19, 22, 26, 31, 51. Starball 9 and the bonus multiplier 2. In the Powerball, the drawing tonight, $90 million, a cash value just under $41 million. Saturday night's numbers in the Powerball were 4, 6, 9, 23, 59, Powerball 25, and the Power Play multiplier was 3. Those jackpots growing, no winners in those two, but a drawing tonight for millions of dollars.
Well, the double play numbers from Saturday, June the 14th, 19, 20, 39, 47, 55. You had a Powerball of 15. Also lucky, nobody won the jackpot for the Mega Millions. It's up to $280 million. That drawing will be held tomorrow on Tuesday. Estimated cash value on that, $126.1 million. And the numbers from the Friday unlucky June 13th drawing, 8, 10, 22, 40, 47, and a Mega Ball of 1. And, no match winner either. You're up to 76,000. That baby's climbing. So those numbers, 2, 11, 14, 17, and 23 from Sunday's drawing.
Get on the fast lane now. There are only 2 NASCAR Powerball drawings remaining. The next drawing is this Thursday when 3 winners will each take home $2,000. All winners qualify for the National NASCAR Powerball Playoff, racing towards a $1 million grand prize and a chance to attend the NASCAR Championship Series. You got until 9 a.m. this Thursday morning to enter that. To sign up, you must be a Mississippi Lottery insider and a resident of Mississippi. Visit mslottery.com to become a Mississippi Lottery insider, and you'll automatically receive the entry form. And if you enter any non-winning hot game, like the $2 Heat Stroke, the $5 Blazing Hot Bucks, and the $10 Red Hot Cash, into the lottery's newest bonus promotion, Sizzlin' Summer Cash, you can get a shot at prizes from $500 gift cards to $25,000 in cash. The next bonus drawing is this Wednesday, mslottery.com. Click the bonus promos tab for all the details on the Sizzlin' Summer Cash bonus promotion at mslottery.com. A lot of winners on Friday, too.
Yeah. Cash 4 winners. There was a good metric ton of them. Players from New Ebron, Jackson, Pontotoc, they all won $800. Louisville man, $1,690 from Zippin' 2 in Ackerman. A Lucedale man, $2,500. One on a ticket purchase at LJ Quick Mart in Lucedale. Jackson woman, $2,900 on a ticket from Fuel Junction. Player from Laurel and Booneville each won $4,474 on tickets from Clark Oil and Blue Sky in Booneville. And then you had players from Pearl, Lucedale, Collierville, all won $5,000 on tickets from Raceway in Pearl, Bendale Superstore in Lucedale, and Fuel in Holly Springs, Food and Fuel in Holly Springs. Sandy Hook, man, $5,800 in winnings on a ticket from East Grocery in Tylertown. And then a big one here, Hazelhurst woman, $25K on a ticket from Key Superstore in Collins.
A lot of cash pop winners. 2 players from Terry, Prentice, Columbia, and Monticello each won $1,000 on tickets from the Blue Sky in Byram, a one-stop in Brookhaven, TG Mart in Columbia, and Cleary Road Exxon in Richland. Natchez man won $800 on a Match 5 ticket from Be Quick in Natchez. A Mobile woman won $1,000 on a ticket in Mega Millions from Midway Food Mart in Moss Point. And the $20 Spectacular Riches winner was from Grenada. Man won $5,000 on a ticket from Scott Petroleum and Grenada on that. So a lot of winners for that on Friday. Don't forget the deadline, the drawing, the NASCAR Powerball is this Thursday. Winners could take home $2,000 and attend the NASCAR Championship Series. Entry deadline is 9 a.m. this Thursday. You got to be a Mississippi Lottery insider and a resident of Mississippi. mslottery.com to become a Mississippi Lottery insider. You'll automatically receive that entry form. Still to come this morning on Super Talk Mississippi as I fill in for Richard Cross. We'll talk next hour with Ag Commissioner Andy Gipson. He's running for governor, so we got a lot to talk about with Commissioner Gipson today, including, did you see this story, Lance, about these deadly ants that are invading South Mississippi now? There's nothing worse than ant bites all over your legs. So I want to learn more about that from him and talk about his campaign. In the 8 o'clock hour, Congressman Trent Kelly will join us. He's on the Senate Armed Services Committee, so we'll have an insight from him on how America may or may not be supporting Israel's attacks on Iran. But we'll get into that next, right after the top of the hour, with Gabriel Noronha. He's the president of Polaris National Security and a former special advisor for the Iran Action Group at the State Department, and was also a special assistant for the Senate Armed Forces Committee. That's right after the top of the hour here on Super Talk Mississippi. Fox News and Super Talk Mississippi News next here on Mornings with Richard Cross.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
All right, now to the important stuff.
Your VIP pass to hear what the most influential Mississippians are talking about.
This is very important.
Huge news. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Memories of love, but the
Found it. Italian Canadian superstar Gino Vanelli is 73 today, and his big song, I Just Want to Stop.
Yeah, that's some hair there, buddy. Let me tell you, I wish I had that hair.
It is some good hair.
What would have I accomplished in this world with hair like that? Man.
It's Mornings with Richard Cross. That's Lance. I'm Scott Sands in for Richard this morning. C-Spire text line open at 601-879-4395. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. Said it at the beginning of the show, the market seems to always know. Stock market futures were up sharply this morning, and overnight oil prices reversed a 6% rally. It appears that the market believes a peace deal is on the horizon between Israel and Iran, and there are headlines this morning, stories on social media that Iran is ready to give up uranium enrichment to end this conflict if they can find a face-saving exit. So oil prices are extending losses on the news. The smart money always seems to know. Gabriel Noronha is joining me now. He's the president of Polaris National Security, former special advisor on the Iran Action Group at the State Department, and former special assistant to the Senate Armed Forces Committee. Gabriel, it's great to have you on. Fill us in on this. Can you walk us through the strategic rationale behind Israel's decision to launch their preemptive strike last week?
Well, thanks for having me, and it's certainly been an eventful 72 plus hours. Israel's view was that Iran was crossing their threshold. Their threshold was basically when they didn't know whether Iran was able to get a nuclear weapon in a few days or not. And Israel just felt it was too close. And, the mistake that they made with October 7th was waiting for the enemy to attack. And that's a mistake that Israel will never make again in its history, I think. And so ultimately it was that combined with the end of the diplomatic period President Trump had given Iran that gave Israel that sort of political green light to proceed. And they believed that they were able to effectively take out a lot of the targets that they had in mind. I've talked to the Israelis recently, and they've said, we're pretty happy with what we've gotten so far. They feel that they've gotten the majority of the targets that they've been seeking out. Now, this is only day 3 or 4 of what I expect to be probably a 2-week offensive campaign. So there are a lot more targets to hit. There's a lot more of the nuclear sites to hit. And again, we'll see how things go. It's not predetermined how everything will land up. But I'm hopeful that Israel has a bit more cards up their sleeves than Iran does at this juncture.
Iran has thousands of ballistic missiles aimed at Israel and some that could reach the east coast of the United States, but they're down to, I've heard, numbers as low as 50 to 100 portable ballistic missile launchers, which makes their reaction, their response somewhat limited, and Israel continues to take out these launchers.
Yeah, so Iran was intending to fire salvos of, 300, 500 missiles at Israel, but the first few rounds they did were only 100, and that's because Israel's been doing a phenomenal job at targeting, finding, hunting down the launchers, destroying the launch silos so they can't actually get out of the silos. And then in the last salvo last night, what we saw was Iran only managed to get about 65 rockets and missiles out. And so this is going to be their limiting factor, is their ability to actually deploy these guys. So Iran started with an arsenal of a little over 2,000 missiles. I think they're only going to have a few hundred more that they're able to get out the door. And the hope is that Israel's Iron Dome and their more advanced missile defense systems are basically going to be able to intercept 90%, maybe 95% of that remaining arsenal. And so, yes, those are going to hit civilian targets. Yes, there are going to be more casualties in Israel. But if you told me, 5 years ago that the casualty rate for Israel's attack on Iran would be in the low single, maybe double digits, I would tell you that it's a fantasy. And yet that's exactly the outcome that we're seeing right now, based on two things: on the elimination of these targets and operational assets in Iran, but then really importantly is taking out Hezbollah and Hamas over the past year has been a complete game changer, because that was the entire conventional deterrent that the Iranian regime was relying upon to impose costs and pain upon Israel.
Yeah, what we're seeing is a very surgical strike on the part of Israel, going after command and control structures, going after their nuclear scientists, going after their military leaders in the Iranian National Revolutionary Guard. We're seeing a more wide-scale attack in retaliation from Iran, going after civilian targets, but Israel has been pretty deliberate in where they have hit. And in fact, I've seen reports that they're dropping flyers on Tehran telling people to get out, that they're not targeting the people of Tehran, they're targeting their leaders and their military installations. So it's definitely a sharp contrast in their military strategies here.
Yeah, exactly. Israel views the Iranian people as one of their greatest assets in this. Even in the first day of strikes, they were having units of Iranian operatives helping take out large parts of the Iranian missile defense system. And that's because the Iranians understand that the regime is the greatest threat to their safety and security, not the Israelis. Now, that being said, what we've also seen is a number of Iranian civilian casualties over the past few days. Those are, people living in buildings next to Iranian generals and commanders. That's unfortunate. What we are seeing is a bit of, we're seeing some resentment at Israel for those civilian deaths among the general public. So I think there's a degree to which it's not that Israel's being cautious and careful and trying to limit as much as it can. But trying to have the Iranian people stay on their side is important. If Israel wants to see the Iranian government really collapse from the inside, it needs to have the Iranian people on their side. I'm not sure that that's what the Israeli government is going for, full, total regime collapse. But the issue here is what happens after the nuclear program is taken out. How does Israel ensure that Iran doesn't just resuscitate this program in another few months, in another year? And that's the long-term problem that I think Israel is going to start thinking about in about a week.
I want to dive into that for a second. We're talking to Gabriel Noronha, the president of Polaris National Security. We've heard that Iran is weeks or months away from developing a nuclear weapon for years now. For decades, we have heard this. In reality, how close has Iran been to developing a nuclear weapon, which is that existential threat to Israel?
Well, there's sort of two different timelines. There's the enrichment timeline, and then there's the weaponization timeline. On the enrichment timeline, Iran has been about a week away for about a year. Now, they've stayed that level because they didn't want to actually go that final step, but they preserved that ability. The weaponization side is actually what caused Israel to go to war. And that's the ability to put all these components together in one piece into a weapon that could actually detonate. What we've seen from signs from intelligence is that they were getting just a couple months away on that front, and that they were assembling all the components needed individually. They just hadn't put them all together in one place, but they had finished each of those components. So that's, again, I think why Israel felt the need to strike today or, last week instead of waiting any further. But Iran was making a strategic decision. They were saying we want to have the ability, if we want, to get a nuclear weapon. Now, they've done two things which are very difficult to reverse. One, they've built the technical capability with hundreds of nuclear scientists who know now what it takes to build a nuclear weapon. That can't be reversed. The only way that you can try to address that is by taking out nuclear scientists. Israel has taken out about 10 to 14 of the regime's top scientists. But again, there's deep, deep knowledge in the whole Iranian nuclear program that's going to be hard to reverse. So even if you take out the enrichment facilities, the centrifuges, you destroy the stockpiles of uranium, it's still going to be a lot easier, in theory, for Iran to resuscitate it and dash for a nuclear weapon than it would have been a long time ago.
We've only got about a minute here, and I realize we could probably spend hours talking about this, Gabriel, but quickly, what would be the consequences of a regime collapse in Iran? We heard rumors overnight that the Ayatollah had been taken out. What would a post-regime Iran look like, and how would it affect the balance of power in the Middle East?
Well, I think what you would see is a power grab. There's a few factions that would try to take over in the absence of the Ayatollahs, the clerical regime. The leading contender has always been the IRGC, which is its sort of paramilitary revolutionary force, would take over. It would end perhaps the religious aspect, but it would retain a lot of the same brutality. They're the ones with all the guns. And so that's the leading contender. On the more sort of liberal side, you would have the idea of the monarchists coming, trying to replace the Ayatollah with the former crown prince who's in exile in the Northern Virginia area, who's promised a much more tolerant, a non-nuclear, a non-terror-based government. They, I think, have the side of the people on their side, but what they lack is that, again, the guns inside to actually win in any military struggle. And I think that's the number one challenge here, is saying who is going to take over in absence and how do they physically get into power. So that's what I'm watching.
Gabriel Noronha, Polaris National Security, here on Mornings with Richard Cross in SuperTalk, Mississippi. Gabriel, thanks for your insight.
Thanks for having me.
Scott Sands, the whole other note that we should...
From the Venable Glass Trap.
Wake up, get up, and start your day right with Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I was only 17 back then, but it seems like I knew more than I do now.
It's Mornings with Richard Cross. Scott Sands, your substitute teacher for today. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. C-Spire text line open at 601-879-4395. We're joined here on SuperTalk Mississippi by Commissioner of Agriculture Andy Gipson. Commissioner, great to see you again.
Great to see you, Scott. Good morning, and excited to be with you today. Thanks for hosting.
So this is your first interview since you announced your candidacy for governor. I'm surprised you decided to do it with me and not somebody more important like Richard or Gerard.
Well, it's Monday, and I want to get up bright and early, and I want to let everybody know I'm the very first one I'm going to take this hat, and I've tossed it in the ring, all right? It's in the ring. I am running for governor in 2027. I will be a candidate. We have a great, exciting plan. I'm so humbled by the response of the people, and I'd like to share a little bit about my thinking, my background, and some plans if I can do that today on your show. I'd appreciate the opportunity to do that.
I would encourage you, though, not to throw a white cowboy hat into the ring with as much rain as we've got. You might want to pick a different color cowboy hat.
Don't worry, I'll keep it out of the mud. You'll be seeing it. You'll be seeing it around. Yeah.
So why not so early? What made you decide to run for governor?
Well, by way of background, I have I've been praying about this, and that's the honest truth. I've been praying about this for a long time. I'd say 2 years. And people ask me everywhere I go, are you running for governor? Will you run for governor? And my answer has always been, I'm praying about it. Also, I've been talking to the Lord, and I've been talking to the people, and I've been listening to the people. And the people have consistently asked me to do this. I will tell you, it's not an easy decision. My wife, Leslie's here with me. I want her to lean in. She's it's a decision we made together.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah. So this is a family decision. We have 4 children. We still have 2 girls that are at home, and they're involved in that decision. But talking to the Lord, talking to the people, and talking to my family, I'm ready to make this decision. I have made this decision, and I will be a candidate in 2027 for governor. Now, you know, the easy decision would be to stay ag commissioner. It's the best job in Mississippi. I mean, who else can do the things that we do? Have 500,000 people come to our place twice a year for the Dixie National Rodeo and the State Fair. Who else can have the fun that we have promoting agriculture and commerce? But I have made the decision because I do believe in term limits. I'm term limiting myself so that I can seek to do more for the people of Mississippi. And I'm humbly, respectfully asking for your vote, for your support, mostly for your prayers and your vote come August 2027.
So what are you hearing from the people of Mississippi as you travel around to the state's 82 counties? What are their priorities that resonate most with you?
Well, their priorities are, we want a conservative governor. And, you know, there are lots of people who give lip service to the idea of being conservative, but the Lord has allowed me to actually do it. The Lord has allowed me to actually lead in this. Whether it was being in the legislature for all those years, I was honored and humbled to be the leader in the pro-life movement effort in our legislature, working with our pro-life groups. And we, along with Becky Curry, wrote the legislation that passed, and God used that bill to overturn Roe versus Wade. I have been the leader and am the leader in our Second Amendment efforts here in the state. I wrote every piece of legislation that restored our Second Amendment rights in Mississippi, that allowed us to restore constitutional carry in our state. I was privileged to be able to be a part of the effort to write the Church Protection Act at a time when churches were under attack, and we were the first state to have something like that. We put it in the law. I'm honored to have been a leader in terms of other legislative important priorities like law enforcement, passing the Back the Badge Act, and supporting our efforts for our law enforcement. And Lord knows it's more important now than ever that we have the back of our law enforcement community. And I have a lot of big ideas about that. But I'm excited about what we can do. I'm excited about what we have done. And I'm honored to say I have always supported our president, Donald J. Trump. I was there with him when he went into office in 2016, supported him actively in the 2020 election that was rigged. It was, I think it was that COVID had everything messed up. But of course, I'm excited that he's back in the White House, and I've been in touch with the White House, and look forward to continuing to work with him. We're working with him right now in the EPA, rewriting, reducing regulations, the USDA, Secretary Brooke Rollins, and we're going to help make Mississippi healthy again, and a lot of great efforts like that. But I want to, when people say I want a conservative governor, they say I want somebody who's going to make government more efficient, smaller, and unlike others who have only talked about it, I've actually done it. When I took office as
I want to talk about some of the ag issues in a second, if you can stick around for a second segment in a minute, Commissioner. In your announcement last week, you highlighted defending Mississippians against leftist policies. I'm curious what specific state or federal policies you view as threats, and what's your strategy to counter them?
Absolutely. At the federal level, we have faced threats from the Biden administration, EPA in the last 4 years that has been trying to take over our land, take over our right to farm, the waters of the United States. You know, they blocked our Finish the Pumps efforts here in Mississippi. Thank God for the Trump administration that's got it back on track. We're going to finish those pumps. Radical environmental leftists that we have written comment after comment to fight against at the federal level. And frankly, at the state level, we've seen the rise of leftist policies. I remember just a few years ago, our legislature had a bill that would raise sales taxes on everybody in Mississippi. And these were Republican leaders that knew better and they would have taken away all of our agriculture exemptions and other sales tax exemptions for businesses. So these are the things that I've had to speak out against, and I will speak out against. And I think the people of Mississippi know that I'm serious about it when I say we're for keeping taxes low, we're for keeping regulations low. I went in the first year and repealed every regulation in the ag department that I could. The only ones that remain are those that are mandated by state law. So the law has to change to do more, but I'd like to do that in every agency that the governor has authority over in the state of Mississippi. And I want to do all this, but I cannot do it without the support of the people. Have had a great response from the people. I want to thank you, the people of Mississippi. You have rallied to our effort here. And it's a reminder that it's the people who are in charge. It's not the big lobbyists. It's not the multimillionaires. It's not the campaign consultants, the talking heads. It's the people with a capital P. And that's who I work for, have always worked for, and it's who I'm going to work for from here on out. And you remember when Biden had all these vaccine mandates, I'm the only statewide official that issued an executive order banning those mandates on all our properties. And I'm honored to have done that because I was stepping in for the people in that moment. We do not recognize the authority of the federal government to tell the people of Mississippi every little detail of their life. We have the right as the people to drive the ship of state. And when I am on the ballot in 2027, it is my goal and my request, humbly request, for people to support me. And I think we've seen a really strong support the last 3-4 days. There have been some polls online that have been taken, and I'm really humbled by that. The truth is, the Lord has allowed me to do everything that I've mentioned that I have done, and it's the Lord who's going to allow me to do it in the future. I feel today, Scott, like I felt when I first ran for the legislature. I felt called to run for the legislature. In fact, I could tell you some stories that would convince you that I was and am. I felt called to take on the role of ag commissioner. I felt the same way then as I feel right now. I feel that I'm called by God to do this. And, of course, I've got to get elected. And that involves a campaign. It involves a lot of efforts and fundraising and meeting goals. And we're doing that. We're kicking that off. But over the next few days, I'll be rolling out our platform, an official platform that I think the people of Mississippi are going to resonate with. And I want everybody to know this. I'm not running against anybody, okay? All the other people who are talking about running, most of them are my friends. And I want to maintain that, and I mean that. I'm not going to be running a nasty campaign against anybody. I'm running for the office of governor. That office belongs to the people of Mississippi. And I just simply feel that the Lord has led me to do this. I want to be obedient to him, and my family and I humbly, we ask you to pray and to support, and we're asking for your vote in August of 2027.
Will you be combining your gubernatorial campaign with promotion for your album at all?
Well, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee today. Actually, I have a meeting at the Grand Ole Opry a little bit later. And I'm finishing up my country album. Yeah, I'll be rolling that country album out. I have 2 albums, a gospel album and a country album. They will both come out on all streaming platforms on July the 11th, and I look forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I've had fun doing it, and nobody else may like it, but hey, Leslie, come here.
We got a
fantastic duet. Leslie, tell, it was her idea, all right?
It was not my idea.
It was she said, let's do Rockin' Years. But I didn't know I needed a female artist on it. So I called her. I said, hey, will you do the duet? She said, I've never sung. She sounds like a young Dolly Parton. Wait till you hear it. July the 11th.
Commissioner,
Rockin' Baby.
Can you stick around for another segment, Commissioner?
Yeah, sure.
Andy Gipson here on Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands on Super Talk Mississippi. We'll get into some of the state's ag issues next. Hang on.
From the Seabrook Paint. This segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
It's happening. You're waking up to what's happening. Mornings with Richard Cross. Right now on Super Talk Mississippi.
It's Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands on Exit Scott Sands Media. And Ag Commissioner Andy Gipson is joining us this morning on Super Talk Mississippi. He's also a candidate for governor, one of the first to announce for 2027. I want to talk about some of the things happening in agriculture in the state, and this kind of ties into your gubernatorial campaign as well. The industry itself, I believe, generates about $9 billion a year. How do you deal with some of the challenges that face the industry, commodity price volatility, federal regulations, and what could you do as governor to enhance the ag industry in the state?
Well, the reality is that our farmers, ranchers, and landowners are hurting like never before, and it's because of the disaster of the Joe Biden administration the last 4 years, a record agriculture trade deficit that he allowed to happen where we're now, as Americans, importing more foreign products than exporting American products. That's unacceptable. I'm working closely with the Trump administration on this. Just here at this conference, I learned that there are 18 trade deals that are about to be done that are going to be hugely positive to help in the long term. We've got to get these deals done before harvest time in Mississippi. Also, disaster. We're having record rainfall in North Mississippi. A lot of farmers not even able to get their crops in the ground, and if they are, they're not going to make a crop. And we're learning a lot about the new USDA economic disaster relief that's being rolled out by Ag Secretary Rollins here. And I'm taking notes on all that. And I know something about disasters. If you remember, I was really involved in the response to the Jackson water crisis because we were able to drill our own water well on the fairgrounds, and we helped get the water where it needed to go. That same principle will apply to disaster relief for farmers, those affected by storms, as well as economic disaster. And then access to health care is another big issue. I think one of the things that we really got to focus on in Mississippi, and I want to give a great shout out, kudos to Governor Tate Reeves. He's doing a fantastic job in growing our economy, growing the number of jobs, putting that positive image that we always have known in Mississippi, but now he's putting that out to the world in economic development. I think access to health care in rural Mississippi is going to be a big, big issue. I know it's a big issue for our farmers. There are some new options for health care that are going to be rolled out really soon. For example, the Farm Bureau health plans, which is a non-Obamacare private sector health care policy that's going to be available, I think, in January. That's something we're working on. And then our big initiative is Make Mississippi Healthy Again. You know, this is where we help our farmers and our economic growth and our people of Mississippi. The president has a vision to make healthier, more healthy foods in all of our grocery stores and shelves, and, you know, encouraging people to quit grabbing a sack of ultra-processed potato chips and eat an apple or some blueberries instead. And so we have launched our own Mississippi version of this. You can go to that website at makemshealthyagain.com. And last Monday, a week ago, I convened a meeting of nutritionists, dietitians, nurses, doctors, and hospitals and healthcare clinics and providers, as well as farmers and ranchers, to talk about how we bring all this together and do more. Because the fact is, it's just common sense that you are what you eat. If you eat junk food, you're going to have junky health. If you eat healthy farm-raised food, you're going to be healthier, and healthier food with a healthier lifestyle makes healthier people. And that's what we want to have. Make Mississippi Healthy Again is about having a healthier Mississippi. And at the same time, it's going to give our farmers opportunities. I'm talking with the state education department right now about really expanding the federal farm to school program that has been roadblocked by bureaucracy for all these years. And now with the Trump administration, we have a chance to do a total redo of this and to get more local foods, more farm-raised foods in our cafeterias to all the kids, all the schools, at the same time as we're helping our farmers. And I'd like to do the same thing with our inmate population in the corrections department. I've talked with Commissioner Kane about this, ways that we can provide more farm-raised fresh foods to help people. Mississippi spends, I think, he said $179 million on health care for inmates. That is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that is a huge cost. Think what you could do with that. And if we can help these inmates who are in the population to be healthier, it's going to cost Mississippi less. And it starts with eating right. So we're going to be rolling out this. Right. I have my next meeting on this in DeSoto County. DeSoto County will be on the Make Mississippi Healthy Again tour this coming Thursday, I think at 11 o'clock. I'll be there for the ribbon cutting of the new Ag Center in DeSoto County.
When you look at the state's high rates of obesity and diabetes and chronic illnesses, this campaign to make Mississippi healthy again, to make America healthy again, is really transformative. I've been on a personal weight loss journey myself. I've talked about this on the show before for the last year and a half. Now I am taking GLP-1s, tirzepatide, but I've dropped more than 100 pounds. I've cut out all the processed foods from my diet. I'm eating organic foods, eating healthier. I haven't had fast food really in like a year and a half. And I've never felt better. I had a father who died of a heart attack at 35 and uncles who died at young ages from heart attacks. And here I am. I always joke I'm on borrowed time 20 years later after the age they died. But I really think that changing your eating habits, your diet, and cutting those things out of your system brings longevity. It gets you off of all of the pharmaceuticals that you're taking for cholesterol and heart disease and blood pressure. I've never felt healthier because of making those kind of conscious changes to eating habits.
Yeah, and that's something that we have had a personal experience with as well. We live on our farm. We raise our family on our farm. We grow our own food, and we do it in a way that, makes us a healthier family. And we want to get that message out to everybody. So we're visiting farms all across the state. I published a list of locations where I'm going to be in the month of June, and then we'll do another one in July. But we're going everywhere from DeSoto County to the Mississippi Gulf Coast, promoting the great healthy food products that Mississippians have access to and how we can get more of that to more people and make Mississippi healthy again. One more thing, if I can tell you,
sure.
Scott.
I've got a follow-up question to that, too, Commissioner.
Okay, go. Shoot.
Well, somebody on the C-Spire text line wanted to know about raw milk in the state. I haven't made that leap to raw milk, but I understand it's a healthier choice if you're going to drink dairy products.
Well, I introduced a bill to legalize raw milk in Mississippi for a number of years, and I never could get it out of committee because it was, just fought against. It's actually illegal in Mississippi to sell raw cow's milk under state law. The legislature will have to change that law. However, it's legal to sell raw goat's milk in Mississippi under state law. That's the kind of crazy stuff we're talking about. And so it's something we got to look at. I'm going to be at the Hernando Farmers Market in a few days, and we'll be talking about a lot of great options that they're providing for folks in terms of healthy foods. But I encourage people to get out and visit those farmers markets. That's where you find the great opportunities for folks. But I want to encourage, right now in Mississippi, we have abundant, available pasteurized milk, local farms that have milk products on their farm you can go and buy. And so we're excited about promoting all these options, and we'll work with the state legislature going forward in the future on these other issues. But if I want to mention one thing that I think most people don't know about me, and that is I'm not a politician in the sense of having a government job all my life, okay? I came from the private sector. I'm 100% Mississippi raised, educated, graduated Brandon High School, went to Mississippi College School of Law, and the Lord blessed my efforts and allowed me to serve in the legislature. But for 20 years, I was and am an attorney, a business attorney, and that, like Donald Trump, I'm somebody who puts deals together. All right, that's been I made a living for that for 20 years. I don't do a lot of it anymore, but for 20 years, I handled big business deals. In fact, I had the privilege to work on the state's largest private capital raise transaction for a publicly traded company, the state's largest publicly traded company. Not one, but two back-to-back record capital raise transactions. And what I like to do and how I operate is getting people around the table and say, all right, here's our goal. What we want to accomplish is this. What do? We do this, this, and this. And then when everybody can come to consensus on it, we can move forward and get the thing done. Governor Tate Reeves has done a phenomenal job, and I want to thank Bill Cork. He's doing a tremendous job at MDA. But I'll say this, that it's going to be important that we keep that momentum going into the future. And I believe that I'm the candidate who can make that happen and keep those deals rolling at the same time as we have the opportunities to support agriculture, to support our farmers, to take strategic steps today for what are going to be critical days ahead. We're in a pivotal moment of farming, and in Mississippi, there's no greater industry than farming, and we have got to be smart today. We got to plant the seeds today for the future of agriculture tomorrow that we want to bear fruit and do good for our people, keep agriculture strong, and keep it American. I'm all about buying American. We have a Genuine Mississippi program. We promote our local products, But we've got to make sure we keep American agriculture American in this state and in this country.
I need you to keep your answer to 30 seconds, which may be a challenge for you, and I mean that with the most respect, Commissioner. Tell me how concerned we should be about these invasive ants that Mississippi State has found in parts of the state.
We should be really concerned about them. We have, the Department of Ag used to have a fire ant program that ended because of federal regulations, but it's something that we're going to be researching. Mississippi State, we work very closely with. Another reason we got to have great investment in ag research and education. I'm excited about the future, and I look forward to talking to y'all again soon across our great state.
You're welcome anytime, Commissioner Andy Gipson. It's great to see you again. Thanks for your time.
See ya. God bless.
Can't wait for the albums to come out in July as well. Commissioner Andy Gipson here on Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi. I'm Scott Sands.
Side of the mountain where the sun don't ever shine.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
Waking up Mississippi. From South Haven to Scuba, it's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Sweet Jane, sweet Jane.
Scott Sands in for Richard. He'll be back tomorrow morning. We're on Super Talk Mississippi. C-Spire text line is open at 601-879-4395. Story breaking this morning from the Trump Organization, from the business side of Donald Trump. The Trump Organization is announcing Trump Mobile. They're announcing a new cellular phone, mobile phones made in the USA. I believe I've seen they will be manufactured in St. Louis. What I find interesting about this is back on May 23rd, President Trump threatened Apple and Samsung with a 25% tariff on phones not made in the USA. It was the first Trump tariff this year to target an individual company, Samsung and Apple. And today, 24 days later, the Trump Organization announcing Trump Mobile using phones made in the USA. Well, I'm not saying that's wrong, but it seems like an odd coincidence.
Well, yeah, and then Richard Cross announcing his new cologne today, Vacations by Richard Cross. So, yeah, great day for America. Vacations by Richard Cross.
Did you, over the weekend, did you see any of the No Kings protests across the state?
They
saw some video from the coast and from Hattiesburg, and don't really know. Maybe you could text me if you passed one of the protests. I don't know really how to judge. The video I saw from Hattiesburg looked like, I don't know, maybe 100 or so people. It's hard to get when you don't actually see it yourself, right, Lance? It's hard to get an idea of what the truth is, because the people who are on the side of the No Kings protests are going to share video that make it seem like there's a lot of people there. And if you are opposed to the protesters, you're going to show a video of blank space, empty space. Same thing with the military parade on Saturday. So I don't really know how to judge the success or the failure of the No Kings rally, or for that matter, the military parade, which I didn't have the opportunity to watch in real time. I've seen all the social media coverage today. And again, if you are pro-Trump, if you're on the MAGA side, or if you're pro-military, you're going to show pictures where there were large crowds. And if you're opposed to the parade, you're going to show some of the empty grandstands that apparently were there. But you don't know when those pictures were taken. So it becomes kind of hard to judge, I think, the success or failure of these politicized gatherings. Right?
Hey, I'll say this. I watched enough of it that I tried to surf around the different perspectives as far as media coverage of it as the day and the events unfolded with the celebration for the Army. And it was really interesting because Fox was really, 100% into the celebratory mode of what the day was all about. And as you went around to other stations, ABC and others, they would break away a good bit for other things, even though they billed it as a military Army celebration. They would break into that pretty regular and go over to something else way more political. And it was unique to see because I think if you look at media, that way and you try to see the different perspectives that they offer, it was, I think the day should have been focused upon the celebration, rather than making it political.
Of the Army, and the people who have sacrificed their lives.
So I thought Fox did a really good job of, honing in on those things, historical elements, and did a really good job. And others, they started and then they'd break away and kind of get political and then come back, and so.
My favorite part of the No Kings protest coverage was Stu Mundell, who I'm a big fan of. Stu Mundell. It's a name you probably don't know. He is the helicopter reporter for Fox 11 in Los Angeles, and he always live streams car chases. And for whatever reason, I'm obsessed with car chases. I will watch them if I see them pop up on X. I will watch the car chase on X or a live stream. And he was flying around covering the No Kings protests over L.A. on Saturday and went into this weird long rant about his failed marriage. And I realize if you're up in the helicopter, you got to talk about something on this live stream. So I think you've got a clip of Stu Mundell in his helicopter coverage of No Kings protests.
You know what? I don't care. I am married. I am legally married. That's about the only way you can really say it. But I am not looking at now at all. I just had a bunch of debacles with my personal life. Yes, it's true. I know. It's hard to believe. I got nothing right now. Got nothing. Not really looking. Trying to find myself and be happy. I'm being serious about that. I want to be beholden to no one at this moment. Do I get lonely? Of course. But I got cats.
Me too.
I love it. A little conversation while you're flying around.
So, if you're single and in the market for a middle-aged guy who's open about his feelings, you've got Stu Mundell from Fox 11. The thing is, if you're not familiar with Stu Mundell's coverage from the Fox 11 chopper, he responds in real time to comments on the live stream from YouTube comments, from X comments. So he knew he was live. Somebody asked if he was drunk, and he went on later in that video to go, I do love the bourbon. I love the whiskey. I love the bourbon.
You gotta love it, man.
And I should be clear, I don't think anybody thinks he was actually drunk, but even if he was, he's not the one flying. He's got a pilot with him, so he was just having fun, maybe a little too open about his personal life, but that's what makes Stu Mundell a character. If you're on X, you gotta find him. If you like the car chases, he does a great job covering them for Fox 11 and is always live streaming on YouTube and X. I just found that to be a really odd part of the No Kings coverage on Saturday. We're getting some texts in with reports from around the state on the No Kings protest that I'll review in a second here on Super Talk Mississippi. Scott Sands in for Mornings with Richard Cross.
Want to know what's happening in Mississippi?
Mornings with Richard Cross, Scott Sands. Congressman Trent Kelly hopefully will join us here in this segment. It's always a challenge when you're dealing with a member of Congress to get them to call in on time, but that's fine. Getting some comments, Lance, on the C-Spire text line at 601-879-4395 about the No Kings protests over the weekend across the state. I saw Aaron from Gulfport said that there were a few hundred people in Gulfport from Courthouse Road over to Jones Park. Also, apparently, some reports of protesters in Starkville, Hernando, Huntsville, Alabama, and some other cities. I know I saw a video from Hattiesburg as well. It's interesting to see in what's become a red state like Mississippi how many people turn out for these things compared to obviously more liberal cities like Chicago and Los Angeles, New York, and Boston, where there were thousands of protesters on hand. One comment on the C-Spire text line that the No Kings protest went awesome. Woke up this morning and we don't have a king. Which is true. I don't know if this tweet is real or not. I looked up on Donald Trump's X account and his Truth Social account this morning to see if I could verify this, but a lot of people were sharing this post that looks like it may have been fabricated, that it may have been generated and enhanced. If it's real, it's the ultimate troll from the troller-in-chief, Donald Trump, who apparently may have sent out a tweet that said, "A huge thank you to all of the No Kings protesters yesterday. I was very concerned a king was trying to take my place, but thanks to your tireless efforts, I am still your president. Great job, all."
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's, I couldn't find it on Truth or X, so I don't know if it's real, but it does sound like something Donald Trump would post on X or Truth Social.
Well, thanks for sharing the Starkville photo, whoever sent that, because it's kind of interesting. You got a protest happening, but yet there's some rainbow flags and rainbow umbrellas and all that. So I think they're a little confused on what the actual protest was supposed to be, but it looks like a few people showed up to voice, whatever they had to say, and didn't seem to tear up too much stuff or anything. It looked pretty peaceful to me. So
I didn't hear reports of any violence anywhere in the country. I could be wrong, especially when you look at some of the riots we saw in Los Angeles over the last 2 weeks.
I'll tell you that maybe America in Los Angeles,
Yeah, they seem to be confused about what they're protesting, because you will see the LGBTQ community out, you'll see the Free Palestine community out, I don't know.
I'm not quite sure what they were protesting.
BLM protesters out, and the No Kings protesters were out. So you get a hodgepodge of people who are upset with something, who just want to gather in one place and yell. The anti-ICE people were out in force. I saw videos of that over the weekend, of protesters standing in front of ICE vehicles about to get run over, and obviously trying to prohibit law enforcement from doing their job. So it seems like there is a lack of cohesiveness in what exactly they're protesting.
Well, you get a little money in your pocket, you can believe in anything, I guess.
What
do you do better on a Sunday? Get a couple $100, go stand around with a flag and enjoy the sun. If I ever participate in a protest, just arrest me. I don't know that I've ever participated in a protest, nor would I. Not that I'm not passionate. I vote, man. I mean, that's why when you protest, you go exercise your God-given right here in this country to vote, and that's generally the most peaceful way you can protest. Right? You go cast your vote. You live with whoever is going to be the leader. You try to support what they do and believe in, and the best you can, and then you move on. You go to your job, you raise your families, you do the things you got to do, and then when there's another election, you go make your voice heard there.
I think maybe I've been blessed with the opportunity. If I have something I want to protest or yell about, I've been able to do it on the radio.
Yeah, that we get a great opportunity to do that. Or I just walk outside and start hollering and screaming as loud as I can.
Which has just about the same effectiveness.
I think the squirrels and birds are just as confused right here in my backyard as they would be in whatever park or in front of whatever building these protests are going on. I'm sure the birds and squirrels are all looking around going, what in the world is this mess?
So, Lance, you watched some of the military parade, you said, on Saturday. I've only seen some highlights and clips of it on social media. Do you think it was it effective? Was it a good celebration of the Army's 250th birthday, or was it a waste of money?
I'm happy that they were able to honor the military in that way, especially the Army with a 250-year-old birthday. A lot's changed in 250 years, right? I mean, I think you have Air Force now, and you got the Space Force and all that. So it was interesting to see and watch at least those that cared enough about what was going on to describe the history of the Army and how it had changed over the many years and the conflicts that we've had. I thought it was a very appropriate celebration of the entity that has protected this country for over 250 years. So I was not one to think that it was a waste of time and money. Every now and again, I think it is appropriate, especially when you have a 250-year anniversary. Come on, man. I mean, it's not like they're doing this every year. It's not like Russia when they're rolling out the nukes and piping them down Main Street so they could show you their force. This was an honoring of the Army. That's what it was. Well, and I think it was very appropriate.
My opinion on this may not be popular, and I understand that. I think that as we're talking about the need for more cuts in federal spending, throwing this much money at the parade may not have been the best use of resources, but the Army and our military, the people who serve and protect our country, should absolutely 1,000% be celebrated and thanked. But perceptually, for Donald Trump to do this on his birthday, which coincidentally happened to be the 250th birthday of the U.S. Army, I think was not a great perception for him, and it wound up, he set himself up to be criticized as throwing a birthday party and being able to play with all of his toys. I think that perceptually the timing may not have been ideal for this.
I agree.
Perhaps been done on July 4th, where maybe it would have made more sense.
Hey, nothing's perfect in this world, and Donald Trump is not perfect, and I don't agree with everything that he is, that he pulls off. I'm not a big fan of throwing out the students, the Chinese, and then welcoming them back a couple weeks later. I don't like the rounding folks up, sending them home, then going, oopsie daisy, we need farm workers and hospitality workers. I'm not a fan of that. I think that if you're moving that fast, you better be right. But I don't think that this was one of those things where this was some celebration for Donald Trump. I think, as the Fox and others covered, it was very much a celebration of the U.S. Armed Forces, especially the Army. So and yeah, it's a lot of money, but we're sending a lot of money everywhere else that didn't get a whole lot of bang for the buck. So thank goodness we actually spent a few bucks on the folks that are protecting us.
$50 million for the parade, or $50 million in U.S. aid to study hamsters on wheels.
Well, hamsters with an umbrella that is rainbow colored in Afghanistan. Yeah,
right. It's how you spend the money, and it's. I think the other aspect of this was interesting from purely an executional standpoint too. I saw a person who puts on events share a thread in real time on X of their experience. And, there are safety concerns, especially with Israel and Iran going after each other and the threat of a terror attack on our soil in retaliation to Israel's attack on Iran. There were security concerns around this parade and large gatherings of people and dignitaries on site. But there were apparently only 2 funnel points for entry into any of the observation points. So that may have limited the number of people who could have attended because they were funneled into 2 different gates on opposite ends of the mall. And logistically, when you're trying to get 500,000 people into one spot, you may want to have more security gates. You may want to make it easier for people to get around. The subway system was shut down in certain parts of D.C. It just made for a chaotic mess, and everybody leaving at once created a little bit of a problem as well.
Reminded me of going to the Grateful Dead reunion tour a handful of years ago up in Chicago, and they had at both ends of Soldier Field, there was one entrance on each side. And you have all these people trying to get in at one time and all of them trying to get out. The getting out part was rough. But, yeah, it does limit some things when you have such a egress points that are restricted so much. But, again, at the end of the day, you got to protect the people. And that was part of it. And, too, weather was part of the concern during the day.
Weather certainly a concern. Yeah, it was rainy and miserable everywhere, especially on the East Coast, as we talked about earlier with the U.S. Open and the mess at Oakmont. You can tell, though, that this may have been more of a success than perhaps even some of Donald Trump's critics thought. I think it was CNN that said, hey, this isn't as dark and ominous and dictatorial as we expected it to be. It's truly a celebration of the U.S. Army. And for CNN to admit that, I think they had to swallow their pride a little bit to admit that maybe some of their fear-mongering was wrong leading up to the parade.
Well, there was a lot of people out protesting all over the country, but hopefully we didn't have any problems here in Mississippi with anything negative like that in the form of violence or brick throwing. I know they weren't carting in bricks here, so, seemed like there was a, nice brick supply available.
There's a limited number of bricks. Yeah. We've got to get them to the cities that can do the most damage. I'm being facetious. I hope you realize that. 601-879-4395 is the C-Spire text line. I'm Scott Sands in for Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi and streaming everywhere at supertalk.fm.
From the Venable Glass
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. Welcome to the show. Lance, you found the Gino Vanelli for me earlier on his birthday, but I've been disappointed not to hear any Grease music today.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not necessarily my strong suit.
You would play Grease for Richard.
No, I would. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I'm more of a Tupac fan, but I don't know if I have
Tupac would
the
be
guts.
good.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the guts to put that out there on the air, hoping that it doesn't have a swear word in there somewhere. You never know with rap. Sometimes it'll sneak up on you. So that's why I don't play much of it. It's just like, whoa, you might get sneaked up on with a bad word.
You would be fine with anything from the Grease soundtrack except for Grease Lightning.
Yeah, if you're calling for it, so I'll go find you some. Now, if it were Richard here today, I probably would find something that would allow him to bellow and the breaks. And I do enjoy his singing so much. He's got a Pavarotti style to him, so. When you're coming out with your own colognes and flying on private planes and, you have a fleet of F-250s and F-350s, you gotta do what the boss says, right?
He's doing well for himself. Earlier this morning, we told you the Trump Organization was announcing their Trump mobile phones made in the USA in St. Louis. Also this morning, Truth Social, President Trump's digital company, has filed for a Truth Social Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF.
Give me a break.
So a lot of news coming out of the Trump Organization today.
I'm so tired of hearing about every new coin that comes out and every crypto. I know you love the markets and all that, but, at some point, I had friends at one point were like, yeah, we're starting a crypto coin. Like, yeah, you and everybody else, too, So good for
look,
you.
I do love watching the futures market and dabbling in that a little bit when I have time, usually unsuccessfully. But crypto I have not gotten into other than buying a little Bitcoin here and there, but nothing of significance.
It's like, penny stock farming, farm companies, pharmaceutical companies back in like the 80s and 90s. You had all these penny stocks and pink sheets, and you're just praying that you put $100 on a penny stock, and all of a sudden it just, goes up 20 cents, and you're a millionaire or something. And that's that's kind of crypto.
And unless
today.
You've got a lot of money to sink into it, and unless you get in early on some of these coins and then sell quickly, you're just going to have the rug pulled. I got lucky on the Trump coin when that came out a couple of months ago. I happened to see the announcement in the middle of the night and was able to get in on under $1, and it shot up to 70.
Yeah,
but again, I don't have Richard Cross money, so I'm buying like $100 of it.
Yeah, who does?
I was able to profit a little bit, but it dropped from $70 to $17. So the people who were buying it at $60, $65 are losing money on the proposition. You have to get into these things so early and get lucky sometimes, especially in the crypto world. And I saw, in addition to the Truth Social Bitcoin ETF, which is an exchange-traded fund. It's not an actual coin. I think I saw Walmart and Amazon are also looking to introduce their own stable coins, perhaps as a way of doing business.
That'll make everything much more simplified at the Walmart checkout line, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you want to do is try to pay in crypto at the checkout counter.
I can only I'm sure that this will be absolutely the smoothest transition that you can possibly imagine. Checking out with crypto at Walmart. That'll be fun.
Online, maybe.
Yeah, I can't wait till somebody goes up. Somebody's trying to buy the lottery cards with crypto. It takes them 20 minutes to figure out what they want anyway. They're like, hey, give me a 1 and 4 and 12 and 16. And you're sitting back going, look, I'm in a hurry, man. And then they actually buy them, and then they start scratching them off in front of you. Oh, if you could just pay with something way more complicated. Let's just
move on.
Let's just.
I'm actually surprised some of the lotteries have not shifted to crypto either as a way to make their payouts or to buy the lottery tickets. That seems more natural than
but again,
Walmart.
If you stand behind somebody that's, I don't know how much more time I've got to waste at a gas station talking to people, because I'll actually enjoy visiting with folks as they're buying their cards. I say, we cover this daily,
You talk to people? I'm shocked.
Oh man, I'll talk to anybody. Especially when they're buying those cards. I'm like, we cover this every day.
Reserved. You seem so introverted.
It's funny, unless it's something like that where I actually have value. I usually don't speak to people very much, but if I have something I can, offer my expertise and intelligence or a smile, I'll speak up. But I'm not one of those. I don't try to engage everybody. People try to run from you these days. They're scared of you. Like, oh God, what is he going to ask me?
This man.
He doesn't have a mask on. Oh Lord.
Somebody on the C-Spire text line, Matt in Burnsville, is saying that the Trump mobile is not actually a Trump company? I'll have to look into that. It was announced by the Trump organization, so I'm sure there's some sort of tie-in there somewhere. But,
I think
but
it'd
he
be
may be
difficult
right.
as a president to potentially have your own social media type stuff in your name only.
It's
and
not,
and
it's
the phone,
not stopped him on anything else.
Yeah, I mean, he's pulled it off. I mean, but again, a cell phone, is that going to have Palantir, downloaded on it?
That's a whole other can of worms.
Was that out of line or what?
That's a whole other can of worms.
I think I'm going to skip the Trump phone if we're going to have Palantir. I'm out on that.
Unfortunately, you might be shocked and bored to know how many things Palantir is tracking now under some of the new regulations.
I'm sure they're tracking your favorite Polymark betting folks.
Sure
they're like, what are these guys up to?
The big story overnight from Minnesota, Vance Bolter, 57-year-old, captured in Sibley County, Minnesota yesterday after the largest manhunt in Minnesota history. 2 days searching for this guy. Wanted for the shooting of 2 Minnesota state lawmakers and their spouses. He allegedly killed the House Speaker in Minnesota, Melissa Hortman, and her husband, Mark, at their home, as well as shooting State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette. Bolter verbally identified himself to authorities and was arrested last night when spotted by 20 SWAT teams in a helicopter. He now faces 4 felony counts of second-degree murder for the Hortman's deaths and attempted second-degree murder for the Hoffmans. Each of those charges carry a term up to 40 years in prison. Those charges may be elevated as they continue their investigation. Authorities at the scene found 3 AK-47s, a 9mm handgun, and a list of public officials' names and addresses, as well as a ballistic vest, a mask, and police-style badge in his possession. I have heard that some of the names on his hit list may have included federal officials and officials from other states. So there may be additional federal charges added on to this as they investigate the motive and the context of the attack, which has been described as politically motivated. That should be fairly obvious. Surveillance footage showed Bolter using a Ford SUV with police-style lights and announced himself as an officer before the shooting. Governor Tim Walz yesterday praising the Hoffman family's actions, noting that Senator Hoffman's recovery after multiple surgeries is looking positive. Authorities last night at the press conference, and I'm sure there will be one today, say that Bolter acted alone, although if you watch, and I talked about this earlier, the interview with his roommate, it's all kind of sketchy, and there are a ton of conspiracy theories going around online that I'm not going to buy into at this point, but there are some questions that should be raised, especially about his political motivation. He was carrying some No Kings signs in the car that police found. They linked him to protests against ICE raids. But his roommate said that he was ultra MAGA. He was happy with President Trump's election. So there are a lot of unanswered questions right now, and I think authorities are going to hold what information they know fairly close to the vest, because they don't want to ruin, they don't want to poison the investigation or charges or trial when that comes up. So more on that story as it becomes available today at supertalk.fm. Of course, we're also watching the latest on President Trump's immigration orders. 2 days after telling federal immigration agents to back off on raids targeting illegal immigrants working at meatpacking plants, restaurants, and the hotel industry, and as farm laborers, President Trump last night announced a new target for immigration raids and deportation efforts, big cities run by Democrats. He said we must expand efforts to detain and deport illegal aliens in America's largest cities, such as Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York, where millions upon millions of illegal aliens reside. This was on Truth Social. Called for the administration to put every resource possible into these efforts. Of course, the ICE raids in L.A. Over the last 2 weeks spurred some violent protests, which caused President Trump to send in a Marine battalion and the National Guard. You could argue that similar efforts by the feds in Chicago and New York might create the same situation. Greg Stanton, a congressman from Arizona, said Trump's mass ICE raids are not about safety, they're about fear. The order last night came after a surprise Trump change on those immigration raids, which Lance alluded to earlier. The language sent out by ICE said effective today, Please hold on all worksite enforcement investigations and operations on agriculture, including aquaculture and meatpacking plants, restaurants, and operating hotels. It's also interesting that Miami has not been the target of the administration at this point for interesting political reasons. We'll talk with JT Mitchell, get some headlines from around the state from SuperTalk Mississippi News next. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands.
From the SuperTalk.fm. Across your state. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Scott Sands here, your substitute teacher for Richard Cross. He'll be back tomorrow morning. You're on SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming everywhere at SuperTalk.fm. Markets are open, and after that big gap up yesterday, we see green pretty much everywhere. The S&P is opening up 45, near an all-time high. It looks like it might hit 6,100 at some point today if this momentum continues. The NASDAQ is up 175, and the Dow is up 272. So despite wars and rumors, oil prices are down below where they were last week, down like 8%, and the stock market continues to rally. There's no stopping some of the traders.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, man.
Even on bad news.
I pulled up into the gas station Friday, put gas in the car. You know, I can afford like $2 or $3. So, I put my $2 or $3 in, and I'm like, man, that did not buy as much as it did yesterday. So now I may have to go to the gas station today, right? Because you're telling me I get a deal.
I wouldn't go today because, they raise prices same day. It goes up immediately, but it takes weeks for it to come back down.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
It's odd. If you're watching the S&P, 60-50 probably is support, and we might dip below that if we see any sort of breakdown later today. JT Mitchell, SuperTalk Mississippi News Director, is joining me now on Mornings with Richard Cross. Great to see you, JT. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, Scott. How are you?
Terrific. I don't want to sound like the old pervert, but I will. Tell me about the brand new Miss Mississippi.
Okay, first, though, y'all are talking about gas prices. The hack from the newsroom is you download Upside if you don't already have it, and then you go to Circle K, you get 5 cents off a gallon, and then you get an extra 10 or so cents through Upside. Your $3 will go much further, Lance, I promise.
I keep hearing the commercial for this Upside thing, the two girls talking, and then she's like, hey, yeah, we're going to miss the concert. We're going to be late because we're going to town over to buy cheaper gas. Download Upside. So it works, though.
It's a big deal.
Okay.
It's good, too. I think I saved $100 last year. So, and then you just direct deposit back to your bank account. But Miss Mississippi for you, Scott, was crowned over the weekend in Vicksburg. Anna Leah Jolly. It's her second year competing, and she is now the winner, and her story is absolutely fascinating. I mean, this girl, she is currently a student at Belhaven, but she was born in Ukraine, and she spent the first 12 years of her life in a Ukrainian orphanage before being adopted by a family here in Mississippi. And, she's the first foreign-born Miss Mississippi winner ever, but I really loved how she connected her story after the fact. So each of these contestants, and pageants are a huge deal in this state. I know they are across the country, but I didn't realize how big of a deal they are until I got into journalism, and they're kind of fun to watch. And so when she got on stage afterward, she connected her initiative that each contestant has to bring, and it's called Limitless. And she said, the reason I do this initiative is to encourage kids like me, encourage kids who think that they have a bad hand of cards and that they can be limitless with where they go. They could be the next Miss Mississippi. They could be a professional athlete. They could do whatever they want. And so that was a huge deal, her winning on Saturday night. She beat 32 other contestants. And now she'll begin, what's going to be a huge public campaign where she stops by different stations, different events, and then competes in Miss America in December of this year.
Now, again, not to sound like the pervert, but maybe we can get her on Friday morning when I'm filling in for Richard.
She'll be here one way or another, whether she's with you or with Rebecca Turner. Miss Mississippi, typically one of their first stops, at least the first stop on the radio circuit, is with this company. And so I'm sure she'll be on the airwaves soon. But just a big congratulations to Anna Leah Jolly, the new Miss Mississippi. And who knows, she could become the 5th person in state history to win Miss America.
Again, I hate to continue to stress this point, but not to sound like the pervert, I'll raise my hand and bite the bullet and do that interview if Alex is listening. I'll take one for the team and be more than happy to schedule that.
Yeah, let him come in to the studio.
Right.
I mean, we have red carpet. We're ready for you, Scott. I got you covered.
Again, not for Lance to sound like the pervert either.
Oh, no, this is for you.
Like
this is just for you, sir.
Right, right. Purely for me. Jane Granberry from Miss Hattiesburg was the first runner-up. And pageants are such a big – it's big business. There's a lot of planning and preparation that goes into all of these competitions.
There is. And for a lot of girls, this starts at 3 or 4 years old. I can't imagine that our current Miss Mississippi was competing at that young age. I mean, she – like I said, grew up in an orphanage before moving here at the age of 12, and her first go-round was last year when it comes to the actual Miss Mississippi. Now, you have to win some of these preliminary competitions. For example, she won Miss Capital City to advance to the state competition. But just major props to everybody involved, because at the end of the day, even if you don't win, if you finish in the Final 11, which are the 11 contestants who appear on Saturday night, you get a scholarship. And so 11 people got scholarships. You said Miss Hattiesburg Jane Granberry was the first alternate. Miss Vicksburg Morgan Nelson was the second alternate. Miss University Mackenzie Cox was the third. And Miss Metro Jackson Gracie Bassett was the fourth.
Congratulations to everybody, and congratulations to the brand new Miss Mississippi. JT, earlier this morning, we've been talking about the No Kings protests around the state. What have you heard? Were there any incidents? Was there any violence anywhere in Mississippi? What were the turnouts like? I saw some video from Hattiesburg and from the coast, and we had reports on the C-Spire text line of reports of protests in Hernando and a few other cities.
Yeah, well, the turnout from my point of view and talking to different people who were either there or saw these protests seemed pretty good, especially for a state like Mississippi where it's a Republican-heavy state, and the protest is against a Republican president, right? You mentioned some of the cities that there were protesters: Gulfport, Hattiesburg, Tupelo, Oxford, Jackson, Starkville, Hernando. And outside the state capital, I mean, there were a lot of people who picketed. According to someone who was there, the crowd was an estimated 1,500 people in Jackson. And I have not heard of any incidents. Given there were some counter-protesters at some of these events, I saw Sun Herald reported that a retired CB was there with a gun on his belt, and he told the outlet he was ready to react to help the police if need be. I have not heard of any incidents. And you talk about attendance, Scott. I was really... When I started getting reports about the attendance we had stateside, I wanted to see what it was nationally. And from what I'm seeing, this could go down as the largest single-day protest in U.S. history. You had more than 2,000 protests with over 5 million estimated participants, all 50 states involved. And, I mean, that's bigger than June 6, 2020 during the single-day event for Black Lives Matter. That's bigger than the Women's March on Washington back in 2017. It's bigger than the March for Our Lives back in 2018. So attendance nationwide was surprisingly really large. I saw a map leading into the event because they scheduled these through different sign-up pages or whatever, I saw a map that showed every single protest that was going to be happening on Saturday, dot by dot, and really outside of some bare spots in the west, Wyoming, Montana, there were a lot of dots, and it could go down as the largest single-day protest in U.S. history.
You know, and that's an interesting point, because there were protests even in traditionally red states like Mississippi, but even with that number of 5 million participants, if accurate, is not really today enough to swing a national election, because so many of those people likely voted against Donald Trump to begin with. I don't know how many people have changed their mind in the 100-some-odd days since the election, but it can't be a significant portion of those 5 million people who were already mad and angry that Donald Trump is president.
That's a good point. I'd love to see a study, and maybe the Associated Press, they do a lot of studies like this. They'll release one soon to see how many people voted for the current president and now feel differently, or vice versa. I would love to see that, because that is a good point, that of the estimated 5 million, the majority probably voted against Donald Trump, if they voted. And so either way, will it make a difference? Possibly. But it was a large turnout, and, you know, it was a busy weekend, because you guys discussed the military parade up in D.C., and it was also the president's birthday, and then the largest single-day protest in U.S. history. I mean, there was a lot going on, and I don't know if we all got too much rest.
Right. The protest obviously successful. We woke up this morning, and there is no king. So congratulations. It was a success. JT, you want to stick around? I know one of the stories that you've covered has been the effect of NIL rulings on some of the universities in the state. Some interesting effects that this could have on schools like Ole Miss we can talk about next. That's JT Mitchell. I'm Scott Sands. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on Super Talk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Trap.
From the White House to your hometown, this is where you find out what's happening. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
What's a frequency can it is your entity?
Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. JT Mitchell from Super Talk Mississippi News, continuing to look at some of the headlines. And last week, a judge approved the House versus NCAA settlement, allowing schools to directly pay athletes $20.5 million in NIL revenue. This is revenue sharing for the academic year, which moves away from third-party collectives. Still a bad deal for college athletics, in my opinion. Not to say that these athletes should not be compensated, but it's still the Wild West. And I don't think that this ruling solves a lot of the problems. JT, I know that you spoke with some of the athletic department leaders and some of the elected officials in the state. What are their thoughts on this ruling?
Yeah, well, they're mixed emotions. I think that the general consensus among the athletic directors and Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, Governor Tate Reeves, is that college athletes deserve to get paid. For decades and decades, TV reps and coaches and staff have made a ton of money off the backs of college athletes. I guess the bad news, Lance, is I don't think you or I are eligible. Lance, you played before 2016.
They're not giving me anything.
Division III is not included for the back pay. $2.8 billion in back pay that will go to Division I FBS. I say FBS because FCS is not included, but Division I athletes who played since 2016 but did not get paid. So, yeah, the general consensus was that athletes deserve to get paid, and this was a groundbreaking decision that for the first time actually did provide a bit, I stress that, of clarity for how athletes are going to be compensated. This will open the doorway for around $20.5 million in the first year of a decade-long deal to go directly from colleges to athletes. Collectives will still be able to pay athletes as well. So you could be having it come from different directions. But Ole Miss and Mississippi State, the athletic directors there seem pleased. They seem confident. They seem ready to adapt and thrive. Southern Miss, athletic director Jeremy McClain was on Sports Talk last week, and he said we're not going to use the entire $20.5 million, considering our athletic budget is $30 million every single year on Southern Miss athletes. But we are going to be in the 7-digit range, and we're going to compete. He does want to see some more federal instruction, though, because there are tweaks to still be made. There really is. You say that we're moving from the Wild West to the Wild West. I tend to agree. It was the Wild West on steroids beforehand. Now it's just the Wild West. And
right. There's got to be a sheriff that comes in. I don't know if it's Nick Saban or somebody else familiar with the sports that's got to lay down their law and provide some clarity, because and more importantly than that, you've got to regulate. And I'm not a fan of regulations in general, but what's really killing the sport with the NIL on top of it is the transfer portal, where one school can swoop in and offer more money. There's no loyalty, and I think it makes it challenging for the fan base. And this ruling doesn't address Title IX or the athlete employment status either. I don't think anybody really wants to call the athletes employees, but there's got to be some better clarity in how these payments are made to make it maybe not equitable in terms of amounts, but in how teams and schools are able to generate the funds that are paying the players.
Well, you make great points. Number one, when I was in college, if I were to transfer, I'd have to sit out a year. Now you can transfer 17 times across 7 years and possibly get 2 extra years of eligibility. You know, we just had that Miami tight end who was hired by the Patriots as an assistant yesterday. He played 9 years. 9 years. Number two, thank you for bringing up Title IX. I kind of gave you a glimpse into what the athletic directors are thinking, and this is all laid out at supertalk.fm. But we also caught up with the governor and the lieutenant governor, and both of them, their main concern as of now is how do women's sports or smaller sports that aren't football, basketball, and baseball, at least here in this state, how it interacts with baseball, how do smaller sports and women's sports fall into this? Because the back pay, not much is given to women. And then if you try to put all this money towards your major sports, do you have to cut some women's sports to be able to save some money here and there and give it to your starting quarterback or your starting point guard? How does it all add up? I mean, Caleb Saylor is one of our reporters. He asked the governor at a press conference last week what he thought, and Governor Reeves is a father of 3 daughters. I believe one is on the way to playing college soccer, and he definitely was not pleased with that side of it. He predicts that you're going to have fewer female college athletes in the future, and to him, that is a crying shame. So yes, regulation is still being asked for. There are tweaks to be made, but as we said, it went from the Wild West on steroids to just the Wild West.
Have salary caps in pro sports. Unfortunately, college has become a professional sport now. Maybe it's looking at some of these salary caps, especially for the sports that's going to be the most expensive, and that's college football. I don't have the answers, but right now it's ruining my love for college football and for college sports. There's got to be a better way to go about this and still make it fair for the athletes.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Scott, as always. Go to supertalk.fm if you're listening. Everything that we talked about is there, but in depth.
Have a great Monday. Richard's back tomorrow, and I'll talk with you again on Friday morning. Thanks, Lance. Thanks, everybody.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.